My name is Ryan. I'm 28, and I used to think family meant unconditional support, the kind that doesn't tally every dollar or compare achievements like trophies on a shelf. But if you asked my mother, she'd tell you that family is all about balance. Her favorite word whenever I questioned why I was always the one covering bills, repairing things around the house, or funding whatever new crisis my parents suddenly couldn't afford. It all balances out, she'd say, as if I hadn't noticed that my side of the scale was buried under a pile of overdue notices and Venmo requests. The final straw didn't come with a bang. It wasn't some explosive argument or betrayal I couldn't forgive. No, it came with lukewarm leftovers in a cracked plastic container and a sentence so casual, so smug, that I didn't even react right away. Your sister deserved the bonus. She's the successful one, my mom said, standing over the kitchen sink like she had just finished blessing me with her wisdom. She tossed a fork into the drying rack and handed me the container like a prize for participation. Take this home. It's the chicken from Thursday. That bonus she was talking about was my annual work bonus. The same one that had quietly gone into their joint rent account last year to help out just this once. I never made a scene, never asked for it back, never mentioned that I had to delay my car repairs to make it work. So when I overheard my sister bragging a week earlier about the surprise weekend girls trip our mom gifted her, right after my bonus had hit my account, I just kept my mouth shut and connected the dots. My sister, Ava, is 26, recently graduated with her master's, and to hear my mom talk about her, you'd think she invented oxygen. Ava was the golden child, photogenic, articulate, brilliant at every school presentation, and an absolute disaster with money. But no matter what financial mess she found herself in, mom and dad always had a reason to bail her out. Credit card maxed? She's building credit. Parking tickets stacking up? The city's unfair. Lost her job again. It's the economy, not her. Meanwhile, I've held the same job for 6 years. Paid my way through college, never missed a payment on anything, and still somehow found myself treated like the family debit card with a heartbeat. They didn't even ask anymore. They expected. I sat at the kitchen table that evening, the container of leftovers sweating condensation onto the wooden surface. Mom was humming to herself, wiping down the counter like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just made it abundantly clear that Ava was the real prize, and I was just the guy you call when the electric bill's late. So, she added, without even looking at me, I told the landlord the rent would be late this month, but we'll have it by Friday, okay? Ava's still waiting on that freelancing check. I blinked. What? She turned and smiled like I'd just asked her if water was wet. The rent, honey. You usually take care of it by the 3rd, right? It's just a couple days. Ava's trying, you know. She needs a little grace. Something inside me folded in on itself. I didn't yell. I didn't even argue. I just nodded once and stood up, carrying the food container like it was something delicate. Then she can handle your rent too, I said quietly. Mom paused mid-wipe. What do you mean? I smiled politely. Exactly what it sounds like. That night, I opened my laptop, logged into every account I had access to, and started making changes. The rent account I'd been topping off each month? Gone. Auto payments for utilities in their names? Canceled. Grocery budget transfer? Stopped. I even pulled back the emergency savings I'd set up under my own name for them, the one they never asked about but always seemed to know existed. They didn't notice immediately. Mom texted me 2 days later. Can you send the rent early this time? Ava's got a lot on her plate. I didn't reply. That Friday, I got a voicemail from my dad, who rarely called unless it was about handling something important. His voice was tight, clipped. Hey, the landlord stopped by. Said the rent bounced. Thought you were taking care of it? Call me. Still, I said nothing. The next day, I got a group text, one of those desperate family blasts when something's gone wrong. Ryan, can you please explain what's going on with the rent? We don't understand why it didn't go through. I just stared at it for a while. I thought about replying, typing out everything I'd kept bottled up, the months of quiet resentment, the favoritism, the expectation that I'd carry everyone while being treated like I didn't matter. But I didn't want a debate. I didn't want apologies that would only last until the next time they needed something. I wanted silence. Instead, I muted the group chat. Then I went out and bought myself the noise-canceling headphones I'd been putting off for months. It wasn't until Monday evening that the full fallout hit. I was in the middle of a meeting when I noticed my phone vibrating nonstop. 6 missed calls from Mom, 3 from Dad, 1 from Ava. Then a text from the landlord himself. Your parents said you handle the rent. Just need clarification before we proceed with next steps. That one I responded to. I kept it simple. I don't pay for that unit anymore. Please contact the listed tenants directly. Thanks. Apparently, next steps meant a notice taped to the front door because that night I got a blurry photo from Ava. Her message just said, "What the hell is this?" Still, I said nothing. The calls kept coming. Mom left a voicemail where she sounded more confused than angry. Sweetheart, what's going on? You can't just stop helping. We had a system. Yeah, a system where I was the ATM and they were the entitled customers, tapping the screen harder when the funds didn't come fast enough. By Wednesday, the messages changed tone. Less confusion, more panic. Ava messaged me directly. You're ruining everything. If we get evicted, it's on you. That made me laugh. Actually laugh, sitting alone at my kitchen table, reheating the same chicken leftovers they handed me like a prize for being the family mule. And then Thursday came. That's when I saw it. My dad, pacing in the front yard of their duplex, talking to the landlord. My mom came out in her robe, holding her phone up to her ear, scanning the street. Probably hoping to catch me walking by, like this was just some sitcom misunderstanding that could be fixed with a hug and a fresh guilt trip. I stayed in my car across the street, watching from behind tinted windows. I wasn't hiding. I just didn't feel like being dragged back into a play I didn't audition for. That's when Ava walked out, barefoot, holding a notice in her hand, one with bright red lettering that even from across the street looked damning. I didn't get out. I didn't wave. I didn't even start the engine. I just watched as Ava threw the paper down and started yelling, pointing at Mom, who started yelling right back. My dad tried to calm them down, but you could tell it wasn't working. The system had crashed, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel responsible. I just sat there, quiet, still, and let the chaos unfold without me. By the following Monday, the silence was eerie. No more frantic texts, no new voicemails, not even a passive-aggressive meme from Ava. I knew my family well enough to realize it wasn't because they'd calmed down. It was strategy. They were regrouping. And sure enough, that evening, my mom called from a different number. She used my aunt's phone, clearly hoping I'd pick up. I didn't, but I let the voicemail play out, and this time, the guilt was dripping through every word like syrup. Hi, honey. I just wanted to talk. This has all gone too far. We're family. Family doesn't give up on each other. Your sister is going through a really hard time, and I'm just doing my best to keep everyone together. I know you've been feeling unappreciated lately, and I'm sorry if anything I said made you feel like you didn't matter. But this isn't the way to handle it. Just call me back, okay? I played it twice. Once with frustration. The second time with pity. Because that was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get from her. And I'm sorry if sandwiched in between excuses and veiled manipulation. But she was wrong about one thing. I hadn't given up on my family. They just never really let me be part of it. Not unless it involved opening my wallet or fixing something Ava broke. Growing up, there was this unspoken rule in our house. Ava was the heart, and I was the hands. She got the praise, the photo albums, the spotlight. I got the chores, the errands, and the quiet lectures about being responsible because I was more mature. But being mature in our family didn't mean being respected. It meant being used. I had stayed silent for years, brushing it off as just how things are. But something about that line, "She's the successful one," stuck to my ribs like a bad meal. It wasn't just favoritism. It was a confirmation of what I'd always suspected, that no matter what I did, how stable or kind or present I was, I'd always be the spare tire. The backup plan. The one they leaned on while pretending I didn't exist. Tuesday morning, I got a message from Ava. Just one sentence. You made your point. I thought about replying, but what would I say? That I didn't do it to prove anything? That I just wanted peace? That the second I stopped enabling them, they called it cruelty? Instead, I did something small but meaningful to me. I transferred the money I would have spent on their rent into a travel fund I'd been too guilty to touch for years. I'd always dreamed of going somewhere alone, somewhere quiet, with fresh air and no drama. But every time I got close, someone needed help. Someone needed just this one thing. I was done putting my life on hold for people who saw me as a walking emergency fund. That Friday, I heard through a mutual friend, our cousin Tyler, who somehow managed to stay neutral in the family war, that the eviction had gone through. My parents had 30 days. Ava had already left to stay with a friend in the city. Apparently, she screamed something like, Don't call me when your lights get shut off, before storming out with her ring light and 2 suitcases. I pictured Mom crying to the landlord, Dad sighing about how kids these days have no loyalty, and a single part of me, a small one, wanted to cave, to fix it again, to swoop in and pretend the damage wasn't permanent. But then I remembered the look on my mom's face when she handed me those leftovers. That smug little smirk. That quiet dismissal. She's the successful one. I booked a trip that night, a week-long getaway to Iceland, of all places. It was something I'd saved on Pinterest years ago, back when I still believed I'd eventually have the time and space for myself. I finally did. I left the next weekend. I didn't tell anyone. I just packed, left a note for my apartment manager, and got on the plane. I can't describe the feeling of standing alone near a waterfall, watching the mist rise and knowing that, for once, no one could reach me. No emergencies. No guilt. No Ava. Just me, the cold wind, and the quiet. When I landed back home, my voicemail was full again. My mom had called 13 times. Dad, 6. Ava, just once. I didn't listen to any of them. I just deleted everything and made dinner in peace. It took 3 more weeks before the calls slowed down. According to Tyler, my parents moved into a smaller place, not terrible, but not their home. The new landlord wasn't as forgiving. Ava, on the other hand, was apparently focusing on herself and trying to start a YouTube channel. That was her 6th new chapter since college. I never confronted them, never gave a big speech. I didn't need to. But a few weeks later, Mom sent me one final message. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even manipulative. It was just a photo of the old house. The porch empty, the curtains gone. Below it, she wrote, "We're out. I hope you're happy." I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed the photo, turned off my phone, and went for a walk. No music. No notifications. It had been nearly 2 months since the eviction when I finally saw my mom in person again. I didn't plan it. I was at a small cafe downtown, one I like to work from on Fridays, tucked between a florist and a secondhand bookstore. It was quiet, cozy, and most importantly, not the kind of place anyone from my family ever visited. Or so I thought. I was halfway through answering emails when I looked up and saw her. She looked older. Not in the dramatic, gaunt sort of way you see in movies, but worn down. Her hair wasn't done like it usually was, no makeup, no jewelry. Just a thick gray cardigan over one of those faded t-shirts she used to clean in. Her eyes scanned the room like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to be there. Then they landed on me. She didn't smile. She just walked over slowly, clutching her purse in both hands like she was afraid it might fall apart. I didn't stand. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, voice small. I blinked, quietly closed my laptop, and leaned back in my chair. "Did you come here on purpose?" She shook her head. "No, I didn't know. I just came in. Then I saw you." I looked at her for a moment, waiting for the pitch, waiting for the real reason. She sat down without asking. For a full minute, we said nothing. Just the occasional clink of coffee cups from the barista behind us and the low hum of someone's jazz playlist playing overhead. Finally, she broke the silence. "We're staying with Uncle David right now, just until we figure things out." I nodded. "Okay. It's hard. Your father's been applying to some delivery jobs, but his back's acting up again. Ava doesn't really talk to us much. Not since," she stopped herself, then looked at me. "Not since everything." Another pause. Then she added, "I miss when things weren't like this." I felt that old familiar tug, that instinct to reach across the table, to fix, to explain, to soften everything like I'd always done. But this time, I let it pass. I sipped my coffee. "When was that? When things weren't like this?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I said carefully, "when exactly were things not like this? When I was 16 and working 2 shifts on weekends while Ava borrowed money from your purse and skipped class. Or when I paid your rent 3 months in a row without a thank you, and you bought her that new tablet the same week." Her face went blank for a second. I watched it happen, the moment she realized I hadn't just snapped recently, that this had been building for years. "I didn't mean to make you feel invisible," she said quietly. I thought you didn't need as much. You were always so capable. You didn't complain. That's not the same thing as being okay." She nodded, then looked away. "I know." We sat in silence again. This time, it wasn't angry. It wasn't tense. It was just tired. Eventually, she pulled something out of her bag, a small envelope. It looked wrinkled, like it had been carried around for a while. She slid it across the table. "What's this?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. It's not money. We don't have any right now. It's just a letter. I wrote it when we first got to David's. Didn't know if I'd ever give it to you. I didn't open it. I just nodded, placed it next to my cup, and leaned back. She stood up slowly. You probably don't want to hear this right now, but I really am proud of you, Ryan. I just wish I had shown it when it mattered. I didn't respond. She took a few steps away, then stopped. You were always the strongest of us. I'm sorry we mistook that for invincibility. Then she left. I sat there for a while, just staring at the envelope. I didn't open it right away. I wasn't ready. And honestly, I wasn't sure if I ever would be. But I didn't throw it away, either. I finished my coffee, reopened my laptop, got back to work. Life didn't suddenly click into place. I wasn't magically healed or free from the tangled mess that is family history. But something had shifted. The guilt was quieter. The air was clearer. And for once, I didn't feel like I owed anyone anything. I didn't open the letter that day. In fact, it sat on my desk for nearly a week, untouched. I'd glance at it between tasks, sometimes pick it up, turn it over, but never unfold it. Not because I was afraid of what it said, but because I already knew what it would say. Apologies dressed in nostalgia. Justifications wrapped in family history. Maybe even a guilt trip or two pretending to be compliments. It was always the same song, just played in a different key. But one night, I finally read it. After a long day of work, I made dinner, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat down in the soft glow of my desk lamp. There was something anticlimactic about it, opening an envelope I already expected to disappoint me. Still, I owed it to myself to be sure. It began the way most of my mom's letters used to, trying too hard to sound casual. Hey, sweetheart. I know this is probably a surprise. I've been thinking about what to say, and I keep rewriting it in my head, so I figured I'd just write and see what comes out. She talked about the past, about when I was a kid, how I used to sit at the kitchen table and organize my toys by color, how I took things apart just to put them back together, how Ava would beg to borrow my homework, and I'd let her, not because I was scared, but because I hated watching her cry when she got bad grades. She called me the calm in the storm. That one made me pause. Then she veered into regret. I don't know when I started treating you like a safety net instead of a son. I think it was little by little, so small I didn't notice until the net was gone and we were falling. I wish I had told you how proud I was, how grateful I was, but I didn't. And I'm sorry. I sat back in my chair, letting those words settle. I was expecting something manipulative, maybe even bitter. But this felt different. Still imperfect, still late, but different. The letter ended with something simple. If you don't want to talk to us again, I'll understand. But I hope you'll at least believe this. You were never invisible. We just didn't look hard enough. I'm sorry. I love you. No demands. No, we're family, so you owe us. Just an apology. One I didn't know I needed, but one I had wanted for so long, I forgot I still did. Still, a letter doesn't erase years of imbalance. It doesn't change the fact that I lost parts of my 20s helping people who never really helped me. It doesn't fix the fact that Ava, who never once called to ask how I was doing, only ever reached out to demand or accuse. But it was a start. A few weeks after I read the letter, I got a call from my cousin Tyler again. He was always the unofficial messenger, the Switzerland of our dysfunctional family. He didn't pick sides, but he kept receipts. Hey, just a heads up, he said. Ava's moving back into town. She's staying with a friend, but says she wants to make things right. She asked if I'd talk to you. I told her that's between you two. I sighed. Thanks for the warning. Also, he added, your mom and dad moved into a senior living apartment. Nothing fancy, but stable. It was the first time I'd heard them described as stable in years. That weekend, I stopped by their new place. I didn't call first. I wasn't ready for some grand emotional reunion. I just wanted to see it. Make sure they were okay. See if the apology held any weight in real life. When I knocked, my dad answered. He looked surprised. Not overwhelmed. Not angry. Just surprised. Ryan, he said. You're here. I nodded. Can I come in? He stepped aside without a word. The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, a modest kitchen, and an old couch that sagged a little in the middle. But it was clean. Lived in. Quiet. My mom was sitting in a recliner, reading. When she saw me, she didn't rush over. She didn't cry. She just set her book down and said, Hi. Hi, I replied. We didn't hug. We didn't have some dramatic, TV-style heart-to-heart. We just talked. About little things. how their new neighbors were nice, how dad had started doing crossword puzzles, how mom had learned to budget better because when you lose the golden goose, you learn to live like a chicken. That made me chuckle. We didn't talk about Ava. Not that time. It felt too heavy. But the air between us was different now. Not fixed, but no longer strained to the point of snapping. There was room for something new. And so, I visited a second time. Then a third. Once, I even brought groceries. Not because they asked, but because I wanted to. There's a difference. A choice. Eventually, Ava called. I didn't answer. I let her go to voicemail, like she had done so many times when I needed help moving or needed someone to talk to after a rough week. Her message wasn't angry, just fake sweet. Hey, big bro. Just checking in. We should totally catch up. I've been working on myself a lot lately. Let me know when you're free. I wasn't. I didn't call back. That's the thing. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean returning to the same place and pretending it's a fresh start. Sometimes, it means building something entirely new and choosing who's allowed to visit. Over the next few months, my parents never asked for money. Never implied I owed them. They started to understand boundaries, real ones. We still weren't close in the way some families are, but there was a peace to it now. And I was no longer drowning under expectations. I used that travel fund I'd started to take a solo trip every year. Iceland first, then Portugal, then Kyoto. Places I had always dreamed of, but never felt allowed to explore. I started taking photos again, something I'd given up when life got too heavy. Eventually, I sold a few prints. Even opened an online shop. Nothing massive, just mine. As for Ava, she kept her distance. She sent a few texts every now and then. Once she wrote, I get it. You're done. But I hope one day you won't be. I didn't reply. Some doors don't need to be slammed. They just stay closed. One afternoon, a year after everything blew up, I sat with my mom at that same little cafe, the one where she found me by accident. We were sipping coffee, watching the rain, when she said quietly, You know, I used to think your sister was the one who'd take care of us when we got old. I didn't respond right away. But you were always the one holding everything together, she continued. I just didn't realize it until I dropped everything on you. I glanced at her. I wasn't the glue, Mom. I was the tape. Temporary. Replaceable. She nodded slowly. Not anymore. And that was it. No tears. No promises. Just truth. It took nearly 3 decades, but I finally learned the difference between helping and enabling, between love and obligation, between family and burden. And in the end, I didn't burn bridges. I just stopped carrying them.